Okay. Welcome back to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. I'm very happy to be here with Jim Garrison, who's the director of the Paradigm Research Institute and Washington office. And we are talking today about the Schumer Amendment that is up for a vote in Congress. Jim, where are we right now on the vote, and how does it look like from, I know it hasn't voted yet, but how does it look like from your end and what you and Danny are doing there in Washington?
Well, good to be with you today, Alan. First, a little correction. It's
Oh,
not the Paradigm Research Institute.
oh,
That's
sorry.
Bassett. I'm the Washington director of the new Paradigm Institute that has been set up by Danny Sheehan and his organization, the Romero Institute, to exclusively focus on the UFO, now called UAP, issue. So I'm talking to you from Washington, D.C. And obviously, we are very focused right now on the 28th of November, just after the Thanksgiving holiday. It was just last Friday, on Black Friday, that it was released into the media that the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, is teaming up with the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and Mike Rogers, who's the chairman of the Armed Services Committee in the House, and Mike Turner, who's the chairman of the Intelligence Committee in the House. They're seeking collectively to organize the Republicans en masse to oppose the passage of the UAP Disclosure Act in the National Defense Authorization Act. So we have a real battle on our hands with the defense industry, the military industrial complex, the legacy group that's been keeping this information secret for nearly 80 years, going back to the end of the Second World War. And so we're focusing all of our attention at the New Paradigm Institute and mobilizing the support that Senator Schumer, Senator Rubio, Senator Gillibrand, and Senator Rounds, and others in the Senate who are responsible for the Schumer-Rounds amendment, which is the UAP Disclosure Act, to stay intact and pass through the reconciliation process so that it's signed by the president on or about the 20th of December.
Well, what would be the reason to stop this? I mean, they're connected to the Pentagon, and that's the big issue. Who in the Pentagon really doesn't want the truth to come out about the presence of ETs, UFOs, UAPs? Who's behind all this is the big question.
Well, I think who's behind it is those entities, Alan, that starting back in the late 1940s, brought together by President Truman in what they call the MJ Group, the Majestic Group, linked to defense contractors, which began to accumulate the retrieved spacecraft, the biological entities from the spacecraft, and most importantly, began the process of reverse engineering the alien technology for military purposes. The United States is clearly focused on what they call full spectrum dominance over the rest of the world. And in order to do that, it has to maintain military supremacy. So the reason why, at its heart, this information has been kept even more secret than the nuclear weapons secrets is because it's the key over time through reverse engineering to keep the U.S. military supremacy ongoing. They don't want to give that up. And yet at the same time,
yeah, go ahead. At the same time, yeah, tell me. Yeah.
And at the same time, more and more people are experiencing the ET phenomenon, the scientific precision of our technology in terms of radar, in terms of tracking, in terms of just our iPhones. We can now provide evidence for ET UFO contact as never before. And so what you have beginning with the end of the Second War, if you look at the number of reported sightings, they go up and up and up and up and up. And the ETs have been basically unanimously providing the same communication to people all over the world over the last nearly 80 years, that you have to stop killing yourselves, you have to stop destroying the planet, you become a virus in the planetary ecology, and that if you're going to survive ET contact, you have to fundamentally transform human relations with each other and with the larger planet. And I think we're now at that denouement where the secret cannot be held privately by the US government for very much longer. The cat is getting out of the bag. And that's the drama in Congress right now, whether the Congress of the United States will finally exert its right and responsibility to take this information that has been held secret by the military and by the defense contractors and bring it into the light of day.
Right. So many questions for you that comes up. First of all, the cat's out of the bag. David Grush testified in front of Congress that there is crash retrievals and there are bodies. And I think they could acknowledge that without having to give up any secrets, first of all, right? They could say, yes, we have this craft, and they don't have to tell us the technology. So the other question is, this is a legacy in the sense that you're starting about 47. Whoever was in charge then must have passed this program down to 2, maybe 3 generations of intel, government, Pentagon people. It seems to be falling apart now. So just talk about also what the Schumer Amendment really says and why it's so important. So you can answer those questions in whatever order.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me start with the Schumer Amendment. The UAP Disclosure Act, if passed, will initiate, starting January 1, 2024, a 7-year process through 2030, whereby, in what they're calling a controlled disclosure plan, they will systematically begin to release all the information that has been accumulated by the US government agencies, some 35 or 40 agencies in the military and intelligence and energy and surveillance, et cetera, and the defense contractors that have been working with the military for many, many decades: Lockheed Martin, Grumman, Boeing, Raytheon, Radiance Technologies, et cetera. They will have a period of time to begin to release the information. What they're saying is very clear, that they're going to set up a presidential commission of 9 people, drawn from the military, drawn from intelligence, drawn from the US diplomatic corps, drawn from science, drawn from law, economics, blue ribbon panel that will be recommended by the president, in this case, President Biden. They'll need to be confirmed by the Senate, because this is an extraordinarily important process of disclosure. And then they will, under the aegis of the Congress, using the right of eminent domain and the power of the subpoena, they will begin to demand that all the agencies that have any of the evidence pertaining to the UFOs begin a process of disclosure. What's important is that any evidence that's older than 1998, 25 years ago, has to be turned over. If the information is more recent than 1998, they can petition this 9-person panel or the president for what they call a postponement for whatever national security or classified reasons that either the president or this committee would deem to be legitimate. Then the information could be postponed. But the preponderance of the information and the evidence from 1945 onwards, including the Roswell crash in 1947, for example, would be released into the public domain over a 7-year period. So what you're dealing with at its core is the most momentous announcement in the history of the human race, that we are not alone, that extraterrestrial intelligences exist, that they've been present and operating on planet Earth. There's been contact, there's been communication, and here's the evidence. So everyone around the world, basically all at the same time, are going to come into the realization that it is time for humanity as a species to come together and make contact with non-human intelligences that have been visiting us for some time. And as I said, have universally been giving us essentially the same message, that we're acting as a virus in the larger planetary ecology, and we need to radically transform in order to survive our ET moment. But humanity is now entering its ET moment willy-nilly. And the whistleblowers like Lou Alessandro that took the information to the New York Times in 2017, David Grush, as you mentioned, in July 26th of 2023, apparently there's now scores of other people deeply embedded in the U.S. military and the U.S. intelligence communities that are now beginning to come forward as whistleblowers. And that means that whatever the Congress passes or doesn't pass, the information is coming out, and more people are realizing that the time has come to recognize that disclosure is in the interests of both democracy and the furtherance of human evolution.
You're right. It's a very exciting moment in human history. So you're saying if the Schumer Amendment passes, then this becomes law. That doesn't mean people have to follow the law, of course, and that's a whole other thing. But it's the law of the land that if you have any information about UFOs, UAPs, or any, what about experiencers? Is that part of them coming forward too? People who've seen things? I mean, where do they fit?
This is going to be limited between the Congress, basically the Pentagon and all government agencies, and the defense contractors that have been working with the military to reverse engineer the technology. And you see, that's where the battle lines is being drawn. The basic issue is who controls the IP, who controls the intellectual property. The Congress is saying the government does, the people do. And that's why through eminent domain and the power of subpoena, it wants this information given to the government. What the corporations are doing and saying is, hey, wait a minute. We've been developing this for, in some cases, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's ours. We control the IP.
Wait, they have been developing it but it's the property of the American people that was taken to. So how, I mean, do you think there's some kickback to people in the Pentagon about the developing the technology? And that's why the Pentagon's protecting the secrets?
Of course.
Right. So this is,
for example, Radiant Technologies just retained Hal Puthoff, who's been in military intelligence involved in the UAP issue for years and years and years, who's against disclosure.
Oh, he
So
is.
they just hired him along with other people for vast amounts of money. So it's this revolving door. You know, you work in the military and you work in the defense industry, and then you go back in the military, and then you go back into the defense industry, and it's all glad handing and basically controlling the most potentiated technology ever known to the human species for two purposes: to maintain military supremacy by the United States over the rest of the world, and ensure massive corporate profits in essentially a no-bid situation.
Right, right. Not to be too dramatic, but isn't this a crime against humanity if they have technology that would benefit the planet, and and somebody inside the military is getting kickback for giving this to these private industries? That's also a constitutional issue. They are going against the laws of the land, making their and so can't this be brought in front of Congress saying these people in the military, in the Pentagon, have broken the law, and subpoena them and get that out into the public? Is that your strategy, you and Danny Sheehan?
Absolutely. That's what David Grush is doing. That's why he testified before the House Government Operations Committee on July 26th. He said that in live testimony. Mm-hmm. We've been lied to. They're oppressing the people who are coming forward. This is against the law. Mm-hmm. And so you have a situation where the military-industrial complex, which Eisenhower warned us about, largely because of what they did around nuclear weapons technology and UFO technology. That's the clear and present danger. And I would recommend, Stephen Greer's, who's the founder of the Disclosure Project. He did a wonderful documentary called The Lost Century, in which he points out that many of the technologies that could have given the human race free energy, unlimited free energy, have been kept under wraps by this cabal and utilized for exclusive corporate profit. And that's why he calls it the lost century, that we lost the 20th century because we never gained control, as all democracies should do, over our own military and our own corporate sectors. And that's what the Congress is trying to bring back. So this, in a fundamental way, is a struggle between the branches of government. Who owns this IP? Is it the military? Is it the corporation? Or is it the government and the people of the United States?
Well, this is huge. I mean, if someone is breaking the laws, if there's a rogue element inside the Pentagon that's making their own deals with private, and the Congress isn't knowing about it, the president isn't knowing about it, then we're basically, like a third world nation being run by the military in a sense. Exactly. And so what can be, what are you and Danny Sheehan, who's been an incredible lawyer over the last 30 years, what are you actually doing about this to get the awareness and get this law passed and bring the people to justice who are breaking the laws?
Well, Dan Sheehan, as you all know, who track these things, has been involved in the UFO issue since the late 1970s in the Carter administration. He was general counsel to John Mack, to Lou Alessandro, to the Disclosure Project for a number of years. He's the president of the New Paradigm Institute and a very, very old friend and colleague. In fact, I took this job because Danny asked me to. And I love Danny Sheehan as a brother. And so, and his wife, Sarah Nelson, and the Romero Institute, we go back a very, very long way. And what we're asking everybody to do, Alan, is contact your congressional representative, contact your senator, and you just need to make one sentence: support the UAP Disclosure Act. That's all you need to tell them. And if we, the American people, by the millions, would inundate our congressional representatives with a demand that they support the UAP Disclosure Act, we can win this thing. But as long as Mitch McConnell, Mike Johnson, and Mike Rogers, and Mike Thompson,
Reed Thompson, yeah.
have the cover of darkness.
Yeah.
This is the heart of darkness. The UFO phenomenon has been held in the heart of darkness. So it took me a moment to get the right word. And that's what we're dealing with, everybody, is the heart of darkness. Right at the moment when, if we pass this bill, the most closely held secret in the history of the world will start to begin to see the light of day.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jim. I'm so happy you're on the case, you and Danny in Washington. Have you met with Schumer about this? I mean, what is he?
Oh, yeah, we've been meeting with Schumer. We've been meeting with Rubio, and we've been the staff and Jamie Raskin. And one of the extraordinary things, Alan, about this, if you saw the House hearing on the 26th of July, you had Matt Gaetz and Tim Burchett on the extreme alt-right of the Republican Party supporting UFO UAP disclosure, and you had AOC and Jamie Raskin on sort of the progressive end of the Democratic Party, all smiling at each other, saying, yes, the time has come for disclosure. And that was what supported the Schumer Rounds amendment. Senator Rounds he's a Republican from Idaho. Senator Rubio is a Republican from Florida. Senator Gillibrand is a Democrat from New York. Chuck Schumer is a Democrat. This has been a completely bipartisan effort. And now the defense industry is going to the old guard that controls the Republican Party to try to kill it. And we've got to stop them, because this is the most important piece of legislation in the history of the world.
Wow.
Because if it's passed, the most closely held secret in the history of the world will begin to see the light of day, and human consciousness is going to be transformed.
Wow, I get the chills thinking about that. Thank you, Jim, for everything you're doing. Let's check back in a couple of days.
Sure.
What's the situation with the bill right now? Where are we at?
It's in reconciliation. And so this is the moment, this afternoon, today, people should be contacting their congressional representatives.
What does it mean to be in reconciliation? What's that process?
That means that the Senate passed one version of the bill, the House passed another version of the bill. Now they have to reconcile it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in that reconciliation that the battle over eminent domain, over subpoena power, over whether there's going to be a 9-person board, what their powers are, whether there's a capacity to postpone, all that is now in play. And we need everybody's support.
So when would we know the outcome of this reconciliation?
Probably by the 15th, 20th of December, if not before.
Right. Let's check in.
You got to do it now, everybody.
Call your Congress people, call them and write to them and email them. This is a major moment in history. Absolutely. Thanks for being. I appreciate it, and thanks for being there on the ground there in Washington. And one more question: are you working with Gary Nolan's organization, the Soul Foundation? Do you know about that?
I mean, they're out at Stanford, and they're much more interested in scientific evidence gathering and in the commercialization of the technology. So they're more on that side of it. New Paradigm Institute is more interested in grassroots awareness, in getting the word out globally. So we'll be convening conferences. We're developing training programs in ET studies with Ubiquity University. So this is a partnership that will be the first ever academic program leading to master's and PhD degrees in ET studies. And that's what the New Paradigm Institute is doing with Ubiquity. So we're engaged in a lot of activity, but we want to change awareness because humanity needs to transform consciousness. That's our concern.
Great, great, great. Well, take a look at my PDF I sent you of my book, Making Contact. I'm trying to do that there. There's hundreds of people in the disclosure movement on some level trying to make this happen. So thanks for being there in Washington.
Okay, my friend. Be
I'll
well.
talk to you soon. Give my regards to Danny Sheehan. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Been talking to Jim Garrison, the head of the office in Washington, D.C. of the New Paradigm Institute. If you have any questions, email me at newrealities@earthlink.net. Subscribe to this channel and take out a super chat to support the information that comes